Welcome back, you guys. Very interesting build video here tonight on the Smith & Wesson SD9 VE. Let's quickly talk about it. Let's just kind of give you the overview of what work is going to be performed. Gives you a little bit better of an idea of what you're watching. Paints that picture of where we're trying to get to at the end. So let's kind of just discuss it here real quick. I'm really excited about this build because we just don't happen to work on a lot of these, and the ones that we've worked on in the past usually seem to be a small piece to what would be a larger puzzle, and today this is more of a complete puzzle. So real happy about that. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting the Vortex Venom optic cut in the rear. We will be losing the rear dovetail. This was discussed with the customer about how we don't have enough room between the barrel and the existing dovetail to keep the existing dovetail on the slide. We usually see this a lot of the time on the M&P versions where there's just not enough room there. So no difference here with it being the SD9 version. We still run into that same issue. We will be removing that as of right now at the beginning of this video. For the sake of discussion, we will not be adding a dovetail back to the slide. So obviously that is an option to add a front of optic dovetail or a rear of optic dovetail, but in this particular case the customer has decided to opt out for that, so we're not going to be doing that. But I did want to let you guys know as viewers that it is an option to add that back to the slide if that was something that you wanted to have done. So Vortex Venom, we're going to remove that all together. The front top zone is going to end up getting the Raptor cuts. So interesting thing about the Raptor cuts is since they're pushed so far forward, more than likely we're going to end up hitting this zone right here. I haven't done a complete layout on it yet, so I don't know whether it'll be in this first serration and then skipped and into this zone or right into here. My guess is we'll probably end up hitting this large peg right here. Not necessarily a bad thing. We've seen this a lot in the past. On some weapons, we always hit it, like some of the other firearms that are out there, like the CZs. They've got serrations on them. We always go into the serrations. So it's not an uncommon thing. We'll just happen to see how that plays out here towards the end. So that's going to be Raptor cuts on the top. We're going to end up doing some side work, and the idea here is to remove the existing text, and just to kind of clean it up a little bit more, we also want to add a side window and a cobra nose. So shave this down here. This is all going to go away. Text is going to get removed. We'll do a small window here. We got to make sure that the window isn't too big, that it causes an issue where the Raptor cut comes down the side. So as the Raptor cut starts from the top and works its way down to the side, and as we're on the side and we cut a hole, we just need to make sure that we're leaving enough material between those two pieces that we're not creating some sort of a stress fracture or crack in the future between those. So I want to make sure we only come down so far on the Raptor cut so we're not limiting the size of the window. So that's going to be some specific measurements that need to be taken in order to execute that and make sure that it works out accordingly. Cobra nose, you guys have seen that before. We'll do a little slot here in the front. We will not be doing a chamfer on there because there is a slight chamfer here and then it goes to the edge. So it'll end up being the C cut on the nose, but there won't be a chamfer on the actual cut itself. Once again, let's talk about this side a little bit more. So this is going to be a shave down here. We're going to remove that. We'll be removing this text. Something to take note of for all the machinists out there or the people that perform the same work that we do. The right-hand side of the gun does have deeper text than the left-hand side of the gun. I am anticipating that there'll probably have to be some sort of a text cleanup in the end, and I say that because we cannot continuously just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper till it's removed, because we end up having a fairly thin piece of material here already. Obviously, we're already working with where the channel is, where the frame and slide come together. So we don't want to continuously go deeper to remove text to cut a window, causing any kind of an issue over here. So more than likely, we're going to go to a safe depth distance on that removal, and then we'll probably have to come back and do some sort of a text cleanup. I don't anticipate we'll see all of it there, but there'll probably be a little bit of fragments, usually on the bottom of the N, usually on some of the other characters like the top of the M, the S. We usually end up seeing certain areas that are deeper than others. If you guys are machinists or you've done work on them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Certain parts will be maybe a thou or two or three, a little deeper than the actual engraving, and usually, once again, the engravings are not the same depth from left to right. So there obviously will be a couple hurdles there, a couple things, obstacles we got to work around and jump over in order to get to the end result. All right, guys, let's take a look and see what else is on my list over here. So on the left-hand side, we're going to end up removing the factory Smith & Wesson logo. So the idea is we'll do this work here. Okay, we'll end up doing a circle here, so we'll do a CNC circle that will remove that logo, and then we're going to be adding a Spider-Man logo in that hole. Now, the reason we do that is because we want to make sure we have a flat bottom when we're creating our engraving, because then it gives us the best quality overall for our logo. Engravings over existing engravings, in my opinion, is never a good idea. I always steer my customers off of that path, out of that direction. I know there's a lot of companies that do that. I don't know whether that's they don't have the right tool, that's just the way they process their requests or their orders, but that is not how we would typically do that. So we get a lot of people go, hey, can you do a window on the side of my slide? We can, but you're gonna end up having text left over. There will be partial lettering butchered. We don't recommend that. The idea of why a lot of you guys come to us is for high quality, good advice, proper and perfect execution. And that's exactly what we're doing. We get one shot at doing this correct. We want to make sure that we are both on the same page and processing the order the best that we possibly can. We're going to be going back to what's going to be a black color. So obviously we've seen these guns typically in black. Obviously they're also sold in stainless as we're seeing here. This customer will be going with a black slide because they're going with a gold barrel. So the barrel, by the time this work is done, the barrel will be back. We'll have a full piece in hand, be able to show you guys all that. I do have a Vortex Venom I'm able to put on the slide here to give you more of a visualization of what it does look like as a completed piece. So overall, I think it's gonna be a really cool idea. Let's get over to the Tormach. Let's go ahead and execute all the CNC work. We're gonna navigate over to the laser. We're gonna do that Spider-Man logo. Then of course, internally, we're gonna clean up. We're gonna make sure everything looks good. We're gonna color, then we're gonna bring it back. Let's see what we come up with in the end. All right, guys, now that the work has been performed, let's kind of just do a real quick review. One of the first things I want to tell you is that whenever I start a video, you have to understand that, you know, I record it, I get those drawings put together, I do the cut work, the cleanup, the coloring, and then we get down to the review. A lot of time has sometimes passed between beginning, middle, and up to the end. So for me, my mindset has changed. I know that sometimes we discuss that at the beginning of the video, what we're trying to get, where we're trying to be, but for me, a lot of time has actually passed through the A to Z process. So sometimes the way things flow, some of the hurdles that we had, those are things that we didn't get necessarily a chance to discuss at the beginning. Although we talked about the work that we were trying to perform, this is basically execution. So, you know, I like to tell it to a lot of guys like that, especially at the show, is that when we look at something and it's a factory image, okay, we get a mind wrapped around a pattern and we say it's gonna look like this, it should look like that, but then we have to execute it. We do still have to figure out all of those measurements, all of those depths, how much can we take off, and that's why I always do a review at the end. Sometimes there's changes from the beginning through the middle and to the end, and that's kind of why we just wanna kind of just briefly go over the work that was performed. I know you guys had just momentarily had seen that, but for me, some time has passed. Optic cut in the back, remove the factory dovetail. Once again, Glock front of optic style dovetail is offered on this model slide. That would be located right here. Okay, so if you did decide, hey, I want to still have an iron sight, we would actually upgrade the rear iron sight to a Glock. A lot of options on the market as far as night sights, different suppressor sights, different wide sights or narrow sights, whatever you want to do. There's tons of different versions of what would fit that specific iron and work with a front M&P. So we would stick with the front M&P suppressor sight to work with the optic, but the back zone gives us lots of options in order to get that co-witnessing aligned and set up to your liking. So that's where we would do that. Guys, let's talk about the front zone here. So we ended up doing the Raptor cuts. I know one of the things that we had discussed was how is it gonna play with the side, not only the shave, but the existing serrations. How is that gonna align? How is it gonna play overall? Really just kind of pleased with the way that it was set up. I spent a lot of time taking measurements, doing adjustments, making sure that everything was structurally gonna be sound. We're not gonna have any issues. But most importantly, I really didn't want to go half and half and split this, and I did want to keep a nice, what I would call kind of like a strut up through here, and that was because I wanted that defined line. I still wanted to keep the serrations, still wanted to keep the defined area from the serration to the step down, and really this was the way to do it, okay? So spending a little bit more time on figuring out how the Raptor cuts should flow with the side, should flow with the existing serrations, in the end is key, okay? Because anybody can just throw a pattern on there and hey, it looks good, you know, let's go with it. But for us, we really want all the pieces to the puzzle to interlock correctly, not jam together, and we came up with some sort of a weird picture. So the idea here is that we really took the time to execute that accordingly. Of course, we're gonna put some pictures in here. I did take a short video outside. I do wanna show it to you guys under the natural light, just to kind of give you that better visualization overall. So those are the Raptor cuts, 4 on each side. We get to see some, we will be able to see some nice barrel here in a moment out through there, and of course on the pictures. And then we're not too far down on the sides that we have any issues with our side window. Let's jump into that. So we did a side shave. Very interesting here because we got to cut down low enough in order to remove the factory text. We don't want to cut down too much to lose any of the structural integrity of the slide. We made a change here that we did not talk about at the beginning. I'm not 100% sure why I did this, but in the end, I think logically it was a sound choice. And what that was is stick with the front contour. So we want to stick with the same angle that we already have here. But on this way, we're going to do a reverse. So this angle is basically mirrored. We flip it this way and it creates more of like an A shape in through here, allowing us to create that logo a little bit more defined. So we end up doing a step down here to remove the factory text. Of course, in this particular case, we added that Spider-Man logo. I just think it made a little bit more sense. If you go back and review at the beginning of the build, you're gonna actually see this goes this way, and then it kind of cuts back to the left, almost like it's the same angle here and here. Logically, I just don't get it. I don't see it. As far as a manufacturer's point of view, having everything go forward in the same motion, of course, this is a signature cut for Smith & Wesson. We see this on the Gen 1s, the Gen 2 M&Ps. So it's not unique to this model slide, or doesn't make any sense to this model slide being the SD9 VE. But at the end of the day, I thought it was a logical move. We're able to clean up the side a little bit more. We're able to give us a zone here to remove that logo, the existing logo, to add a logo, and you know, ultimately it flows a little bit better. Let's take a look and see what the ejection side looks like. So once again, one of the hurdles that we had here was the farther you shave down here, the bigger the issue you have with the ejection side, and also it starts allowing the extractor to protrude out through the side. Under normal circumstance, it's almost a flush cut through here, very, very close. So we want to make sure that we're cutting enough to make it visually look good, but we're not cutting too much to where it's almost a hang, right? So it's almost sticking out and it's in the way. And so we just want to make sure that we're making good choices there. That was definitely one of the hurdles that we took some measurements, did some notes, did some cut passes, took some notes again, and you know, one of those, you know, measure like 16 times and cut once kind of a deal. And in the end, we have a really nice pattern set up into our system going forward on future builds for new customers or returning customers. This will be kind of the executed plan. So the window could change. We could do different styles of windows, but I think that the overall forward slant, reverse slant here would be our basically our cut choice for the sides. The Cobra nose, nice looking piece, set high. We have that set high so that way we can see the barrel as it's supposed to. We're not too far down where we're getting into the spring zone and things like that. So overall, real pleased with the way that that came out. Let's take a look at the barrel. Let's drop this guy in here. So of course, gold barrel all the way around, titanium nitride. One of the things I do want to tell you guys just real briefly as we are putting this together, which looks really, really nice. One of the new services that we are currently offering, don't have a lot of examples in hand, okay, so we're already taking orders in, we're processing them. I guess the best way to say it is when this video has been created, we don't have any things in hand, but we are taking orders in to process them, is 24 karat gold, bright nickel, and copper coatings on barrels up to 2.5 mil thick. So the idea here is that you guys will see a lot of coatings that are applied to steel and stainless steels, barrels, slides. We happen to see a lot of these guns that would be the 1911s in the gold version, right? And a lot of people end up doing some sort of a brush system to get that on there. It looks pretty good. Ours isn't that way at all. Ours is basically the part goes into a solution and it actually adheres the gold to the external part up to 2.5 mil thick. So it's a really, really thick gold coating. Not thick enough that we're going to have any issues as far as tolerances go, lockup issues go, or anything like that. But what we are going to get overall is durability. So it's a really interesting concept because a lot of people go with that titanium nitride like we would see here, but we do now have the opportunity to get a real true gold tone, about 80 to 85% on our formula of the durability of titanium nitride. We're still ironing those out to get them to get it a little bit more durable. But the idea here is that it's a quicker turnaround time, and ultimately the idea is that it is 24 karat gold. So it's kind of one of those deals where if you're going to spend the money, hey, why not put actual gold on it, something that's going to have a little bit more luster to it, not necessarily what sometimes we get with different vendors, and that is we don't know what the tone's going to look like. It might be a matte, might be a satin, might be a polished, might be a super polished. We don't know what we're necessarily going to get with titanium nitride. We do know what we're going to be getting with the gold, and that is ultra high, fine, bright gold, like it's supposed to be looking. So very, very cool. Obviously, you guys will start to see a ton more of that on our Instagram. You'll start to see a lot more of those reviews as people have gotten it onto our Facebook account. So things like that. Guys, we have an in-house optic that's here. It's one of our rough ones. I'm going to slip it on here anyhow. I do apologize. I don't happen to have any better optic here, but this is going to give you a little bit better visualization. Of course, once again, there was pictures taken, so it does give you the opportunity to kind of see it with some sort of an optic on it. We don't have a frame. One of the things I want to just throw out here before we do a cap on this video, and that is, you know, I work on a lot of different firearms. You guys have seen that on the YouTube channel, on Instagram, on Facebook. You guys know there's a lot of stuff I work on that you guys don't see. It's a repeat thing, or it's a 10% or a 20% change of something that we've already done, so we don't necessarily post it. But, you know, honestly, I do think that with all the people that come through the gun shows and see us at private shows that we do sometimes, you know, I think this would fit really nice on the table. Okay, it's one of those firearms that is a cost savings firearm. It's a tried and true. It's been around for a long time, so it's kind of one of those deals where I think honestly, for the cost of what the firearm is and for ultimately the detail of what can be done, I think it's something that should be shown actively all the time. You know, we do see a lot of those people carrying those weapons that are somewhere between the $279 to $400 range. A lot of new guns hit that number now too, as they've been out for a little bit of time. So the idea is that this one strikes pretty high on the checklist of weapons that we do get a lot of requests for, but we haven't necessarily turned out a lot of services for. So I think this is an opportunity to really show you guys. We did happen to have another one here that had very similar to this, no optic. It did have a side shave, and we also ended up having the Cobra nose, and we had a top window. So we're gonna have a couple pictures in this video as well, if we haven't posted them already, to show you that we do have a couple of different rotating patterns. We don't have to do this exact one. We could do something like a hive on the top rear, no optic, a different optic. So there is a lot of configuration changes to really figure out what you want to have, what fits your needs, maybe what you already have. Maybe you already have an optic and you want to use that optic, or maybe you already have some sort of a barrel, you want to use that barrel. So it doesn't have to necessarily be what you see is what you get. That is kind of why we are a customization shop. We do want you to build what you want, not pick what we have. We are not a manufacturer of slides that turns out 5 slides a year or every couple of years and we just crank them out. That's not us. That's not what we do. You guys have already figured that out. Build what you want, spend your hard-earned money on what you actually want, and don't don't pick something because you can have it now. A lot of the times our turnaround times are just as quick as what it would be if you bought it anyhow. So feel free to reach out to us. We do have a contacts tab. Go there, let us know what's going on. You can reach out to us through Instagram. You're definitely able to reach out to us through Facebook. YouTube, guys, we do not quote on YouTube. I know there's a lot of people that are like, hey, how much does this cost? We just don't do it. One of the reasons that we don't do that, a great example is like some of the older weapons. I shouldn't say some of the older weapons, but some of the older build videos that we've done. We've worked on some of the other stuff, some of the XDs, the Gen 1 versions, and some of the stuff like the PX4s. Those are services that we really don't offer much anymore. So the idea is that if we would have quoted it, people would have thought that it's still a service that's available. They want to send their stuff in. They still want to get it done. So we do recommend that you send us an email, okay? We tell the same people on Instagram, you know, send us a direct message, send us some sort of a private message, and we'll get you a quote. The idea behind it is that what's available today may not be available tomorrow, and sometimes things change. You know, we don't want to say, hey, this costs X amount of dollars. People look at it and go, well, I don't want to pay that because I don't want an optic. Well, you don't have to. We're only going to bill you a la carte for the services that you want. We'll give you a list, we'll give you a cost per service, and then you can go ahead through that process and kind of pick what you want. But when we start ballparking and saying, this project was X amount of dollars, people don't know, was that like with the barrel? Or was that with an optic? Or was it, you know, what if I want a dovetail cut and I want an iron sight? Well, you know, was that part of it? So there's so many different variables of, I don't want a cobra nose, you know, I could care less about that. Or I want a top window, which costs less than a raptor cut like we have on here. So it's impossible for us just to quote something because people go, how much is that? And then everybody else sees that and they're like, yeah, but I don't want exactly that. I want battle worn. Is that the same price? So, or I don't want my barrel that color. Why am I paying for a barrel service when I don't need a barrel service? So you really do need to reach out. You need to let us know exactly the services that you are after and how we need to adjust that pattern. We are building a quote specifically to you because it is a specific project for you, not just a general project. So something to take into consideration. Hopefully that will gear you guys a little bit easier into getting some of those quotes and probably, hopefully, kind of steer you off the direction of saying, how much is that? Because usually it's not a service that's just a dead set service. Usually there's a room for adjustments, logos, battle worn, different cuts, things like that. So we definitely want to make sure that we are quoting you out correctly and not over quoting you for something that you don't even need half the service. So let's make sure that we get that right. Guys, if you need anything, let me know. And you can always catch me right here turning out new stuff because that's pretty much what we do.